Just the stats, Reggie Johnson, Eugene Morton on this fine day here, Eugene. Now, there's a lot of
Yep.
people who come from Atlanta, Georgia. Thanks you for listening wherever you may be listening or watching. Uh, no, this has been a long time coming here for me with the Negro League stats being added here to Major League Baseball, only because some of these players were legendary guys here. Speaking of a legendary guy, before we even get into Josh Gibson, we got to talk about your Satchel Paige shirt. Let me see if I can.
Oh, yep. Let me bring it up for you.
Hold on. Yeah, man.
Oh,
Go
there you
for
go.
there. We go full screen, brother. Full
There you
screen.
go.
Yeah, hell
Satchel
yeah.
Paige.
Yeah,
Got it.
Satchel Paige, man. So it's been a long time coming for a lot of these guys, in my opinion, and I'm very happy that it is actually here. You know what I mean? Like, we actually have a situation where these stats can be looked at, and I think it's better for the future. I don't think it really changes anything now. I really wish that some of those guys like Buck O'Neil and stuff were still here so they can see some of these changes kind of come to place and kind of take place. But I'm happy that they did. And this is one that I'm the happiest about. I'm happiest about our guy, Josh Gibson, which we'll do another episode on here at some point. But I'm happiest about Josh Gibson being there over Ty Cobb. I cannot tell you how much I hope Ty is like rolling over in his grave, man. I hope he can't stand this. You know what I mean? Because the guy, Ty Cobb, was a great baseball player, but known as a notorious bigot, right?
Yes,
and you can say that he's a man, a sign of the times, right? It's not even right. It's not a bit. He was an actual bigot.
Yeah,
and
there's no debate.
You can say it's a sign of the times, because I think it was. If I'm going to be fair, it was the times that he was in, but he was also just a bigot. So I'm very happy to see Josh Gibson knock this guy down on that career batting average list right there. He still holds on to the number 2 spot, but I'm definitely glad to see Josh take that first spot. What were your thoughts here when you we'll go over some of the other stats here that changed, and I think there's a more exhaustive list maybe we'll go over at some point in time, but I just kind of wanted to talk about this briefly because it just happened. I'm very excited that it happens. You have a lot of people who are saying that, oh, the MLB, it's going woke. You always have those guys coming out, right? The guys who are they're just they're woke now because they're including these stats of guys who played in the same time period and played the same game that these other guys played, and evidently that's controversial for some people. So
I guess. I mean, if you want to make it controversial. No, I was, when you were talking, I was just looking up how I found out about it was through the Ken Burns baseball documentary.
Yes.
So I want to look at when it came out. Was 1994.
That was in the 90s.
Yeah,
that baseball documentary. It had an update.
Yeah. So
amazing documentary, by the way, for anybody who has not seen.
That's where I learned about Josh Gibson, Satchel Paige, and Jackie Robinson. That was that time, those 3 guys. And that's where when you were like, that's what got me researching it. That's got me got started with those 3 guys. Mainly Satchel Paige, because I just love his story. I love a guy. The reason why he wasn't one of the first to come up was because he was like the showman, right? He was the guy with he would clear the bases out. And he would only pitch to one guy. He would clear the outfield, clear the infield. He would no, I'm going to only pitch obviously the catcher. But yeah, I just love the showmanship of him. He was way before his time. And so that one, and this, I mean, just the job. I mean, we all know the Jackie Robinson, but it's finally nice to see those records in there.
Yeah.
And people now go, well, hopefully now they'll start researching it, right? Because I started researching because of a documentary I watched over 30 years ago. And now
it was a book for me, a book I read in
Which book was
high
yours?
School. It was a book on the Negro League that I read in high school that started me down that path, because I didn't see Ken Burns' documentary till later in life. So I didn't see Ken Burns' documentary till the 2000s. I think he had already added the other parts to it when I saw it.
Yeah.
But that's one of the best documentaries. Baseball is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen, and to this day. It's an amazing 11-part documentary. I watch it every now and then. I've seen it now 2 or 3 times. And every now and then, as some years pass, I'll watch it, because a lot of the stuff that you watch in that documentary is still relative, because it's history. So it's still very relative today as it was when it was made, because by the time it was made, a lot of that stuff was done anyway. Yeah. Except now we have the inclusion of a lot of these stats and players that were in that documentary. So I feel like we're kind of coming full circle here. Let's talk about some more of his stats here. Let's go to career on base percentage, Ted Williams, 482. 474. Josh Gibson added into the 3 there. Ted was able to hold on to a couple of these records. I was worried, not really worried, but I was thinking that, Ted holds a lot of records. So I was thinking that some of these might be ones that are in jeopardy. But man, if you know what? I might just do it. Let's just go back to this one. You absolute clown. Clown right here. You absolute clown. I would love to just keep this here and just have this up here the whole time and just have this name right here above this name. Man. It's complete clown. But let's go back to the show here. Career on base percentage, he ranks 3rd there behind Ted Williams, Babe Ruth, and Josh coming in there. Let's go to our career slugging percentage, which is the total number of bases players record. I had to look this up. Total number of bases players record per at bat, and does not include walks or hits by pitch. So we have him. He's a leader here now at 718. Ahead of Babe Ruth and Ted Williams, a great Ted Williams here. I don't have nearly as much hate for him as I have for Ty Cobb, but he's an absolute garbage human being. But Babe Ruth and Ted, I could never have that same hate for, especially for Ted Williams. Lou Gehrig, great, excellent player here, right? And it's just like you got some other guys here. that Mule Suttles, Turkey Stearns, and
it's
Oscar
finally,
Charleston.
that's what I'm saying. You're getting
integrated there, right? Not just about our guy Josh.
Not about just our guys, but not the guys that we grew up. But it's like some other guys in there. Like I said, hopefully someone now people will start taking time researching him and going, and now they'll start to get their due that I think they deserve.
Very true, my friend. Very true. And I think the last here is OPS, which I think is a combination of the on-base percentage and the slugging percentage. It's a combination of the two. Josh Gibson here at the top of this list. Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, once again. That clown Ty Cobb, nowhere to be found. I'm glad I've only had to have him tolerate him on one list. Ted Williams, what a player, right? What a player Ted was out here, man. Like he's still holding strong on a lot of these lists. Ted, you know what's interesting about this list? When you look at the top of any of these lists, and that's inclusive of Josh, these are all older players. These are like yesteryear. And look at the records that these guys still hold, right? You got to go to Barry Bonds before you get to guys that I recognize on these lists or actually have seen play. Like I've watched old because just like you, I was a baseball fan, not a huge baseball fan, but I am a baseball history fan. I don't know I don't know why, but I love history of baseball. I love it. I love watching some of the old highlights, whether that's from the 80s or whether that's from the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. Baseball has such a storied history that you can keep going back and find something there that's interesting. So what is your general takeaway, and what are your answer for people who say stuff like this is just baseball going woke, which I feel like, for one, this is the only time we will talk about this particular crowd of human beings. They're always ready, for one. They're always ready to talk whatever crap or whatever soapbox they can hop on. So this is just yet another thing. But it's a lot of things with these people. It's commercials. It's store displays. It's always something with this crowd. But so what are your thoughts here just on inclusion, and we'll kind of wrap it up there?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's long overdue. And the one thing I kept hearing was, oh, well, they didn't face the same kind of pitching or the same kind of athleticism that the MLB people face. And it's that same argument where, well, if I dropped in an NBA player in this era, would they be able to play? Absolutely. I think if they would have been dropped in, maybe those percentages, maybe the OPS numbers are not as high, but I still think they're there, right? They would still be in those categories, right? Maybe they're not passing Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig, but I still think they're in the conversation. And I think that's the thing I think people are overlooking. They were still talented athletes. They just never got a chance. They had talent. They had a gift, and they were never able to share that gift on a big stage. They shared it on a lower stage. Okay, that's fine, but they still put up gigantic numbers. It's like when you ever play intramurals in high school, and the one stud high school guy plays with you, right? So that guy's numbers are always going to be inflated because he's playing against a bunch of scrubs like us. I feel like it's a kind of the same thing as like those guys. If they were given that chance, they're still going to be putting up numbers. Like they're still going to be up there with their career batting average, the OPS. There's home runs. I still think they would have still been to those levels. I just don't buy that argument.
So, and that's the argument, and let's talk about that for a second, then we'll kind of get out of here. So the argument that you've been hearing a lot of is the whole, like, they didn't face, are they talking about the black players in the Negro leagues? And
correct.
The time period is the time period.
Right.
So it's not like these other guys were dealing with the same things that a lot of people are dealing with today.
No.
And a lot of these time period conversations I have, and the people that were in the major leagues playing weren't dealing with the racism and bigotry.
No.
On top of everything, weren't dealing with not being able to stay in certain hotels, ride in certain transportation, ride through certain cities. They weren't dealing with any of that. So then they're given more credit for that? Are they given, like, is that added as an addition to people, you think? Like, I don't understand where that comparison would come from, because if you look at the two groups of human beings here and the time period, it's going to be hard for me to listen to people say that the people that were in the MLB had a worse time than the people that were in the Negro League.
Right.
I don't really get that. If you're saying that you don't feel like the percentages will be the same, but I feel we can argue that on both sides, because there was the bigotry, and you don't. This is why I love sports now, because of the meritocracy, whether it's basketball, soccer, football, baseball. You can come from a whole different country now and then come here and make a mark on the game, on these games, and have your statistics taken down in the annals of history of these games. So without having that, if you go back to where this was, where the segregation and teams weren't even playing each other, you don't even know if they're playing the best players. You can't say that the best players were in the MLB. That'd be ridiculous.
Correct.
Because you just wouldn't know. I'm not saying that they weren't, but you don't know because they weren't there. And when you look at what's happening and with some of these guys being able to come in and play, that would be like saying, like, if you look at the Luka situation where in the basketball, it's going to completely different reference here. But Luka playing an international game, let's say the international game was never counted, and we looked at it like, oh, well, he played the international game. It's just not as better. And we never got the chance to see this guy actually come over. A Giannis, right? A Giannis who plays in Greece, and say, well, he came up playing in Greece. He's not going to be any good over here. You never would have got a chance to see the guy be good over here and see him win MVP over here, right? And see him win a championship over here. You wouldn't had a chance to see it because you would have automatically in your head written it off. So that's what I see. That's how I feel about a lot of these records, is that you just don't know what you don't know. You don't know how good or bad these guys would have been if they had played in these leagues. So it's only right that you count both of them together, because they are both missing an element, and when that is each other, in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah, never bought it. And like I said, you can drop them in. Again, maybe you can, like you said, argue that maybe their percentages are higher, but I guarantee you, if they had the chance to play that long in the MLB, their numbers would still stack up. They would still be in there.
I think so too. And some of the people that are in the MLB, who knows if their stats would have been as higher. If there's a Josh Gibson there, all those pitching stats still there. You don't think Josh Gibson's tearing up some of those pitching stats if he's coming through the league?
Yeah.
You don't think Satchel Paige is tearing up some of those batting averages if he's playing in the league? Like, you don't ever know. So the assumption that the exclusion somehow makes either of these better, this is a crappy time period, and I think this is great on baseball to get in and try to at least correct some of the wrong. It doesn't correct it, but at least you have the stats counted. At least when we read about a Ty Cobb, now we have to read about a Josh Gibson. Before that, he was non-existent. He just didn't exist. So I think this is great. Long overdue. This is Just the Stats. Check us out: Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Check us out on TikTok and YouTube as well. See you next time.